Alright, this is part 2 of the video concerning Revelation 7 and also Ezekiel 9. So, we were just covering what the four winds represent in Revelation 7. We read a quote from 5T, Testimonies 5, page 152, which clearly stated that it represents the time of trouble such as never was, or the time of the Sunday law. So, I'm going to read another statement saying the same thing, and then we'll also look more at what the when that is to take place, or just another statement showing that the time of trouble begins before the close of probation. So we see here in Manuscript Release Series again, page 15, or sorry, volume 15, page 86. It says, "The time of trouble is before us. The angels are, as it were, just loosening the four winds, but they cannot loose them yet. The church is too far behind her privileges. The people of God are too indolent. Many are unfaithful, many are unclean and polluted. We are not prepared for the crisis. The question is, how long will God wait for our tardy movements? Instead of lying before God in humility, man has exalted himself and has indulged in high ideas of his own importance and loftiness, and his eyes have been closed to the glory of Christ. When Christ beams forth upon the soul, all glory is rendered unto him who is seen to be the only one full of grace and truth. His glory alone should fill the soul." So that's another clear statement saying that the time of trouble such as never was is represented in Revelation 7 by the four winds. Also, that the reason why the winds are being held is because the church is too far behind her privileges. In another place she says the church has turned back from following Christ her leader and is steadily retreating towards Egypt. And so here, she's telling you why. It's an issue with the church. Right? So the question is, if the reason why the winds are being held is because of the condition of the church, then does that not show that the condition of the church must change before the winds are let loose? You understand the reasoning? So that's an interesting statement there to look up. Again, that's 15MR would be the abbreviation, page 86. The other statement will be from Review and Herald, November 19, 1908, and that'll be paragraph 12. It says, "Wonderful events are soon to open before the world. The end of all things is at hand. The time of trouble is about to come upon the people of God. Then it is that the decree will go forth prohibiting or forbidding those who keep the Sabbath of the Lord to buy or sell, and threatening them with punishment and even death if they do not observe the first day of the week as the Sabbath." And then she quotes Daniel 12 verse 1. So she's talking about the time of trouble such as never was, being the time of the Sunday law, which we previously read is probationary time, because at the time of the Sunday law, God's people will go out and proclaim the loud cry. In fact, this is even the context of what she's writing about. A few paragraphs before, paragraph 9 of Review and Herald, November 19, 1908, she says the third angel's message is to lighten the earth with its glory, but only those who have withstood temptation in the strength of the Mighty One will be permitted to act a part in proclaiming it when it shall have swelled into the loud cry. So you see, in the one statement she said the winds are being held because of the condition of the church. Now she's saying that the time when the winds are let loose is the time of the Sunday law, the time of trouble such as never was, yet it is before the close of probation. And here she says that the only ones that will be permitted to act a part in proclaiming that message will be those who have withstood the temptations in the strength of the Mighty One, being Jesus Christ. So we see here that clearly the condition of the church changed before the winds were let loose, so that you have a pure people to give the message. So we're going to see who those pure people are, which might already be self-explanatory to you, considering the context of these statements in the light of Revelation 7. Also, we're going to see what made this great change take place. And one side of it is what we looked at previously, and that is the message of the angel of Revelation 7. That causes a change to take place in the hearts of those who accept that message, preparing them to withstand the temptation in the strength of the Mighty One. But something else happens to those who do not accept that message, those who are unwilling to allow Christ to hold them up in His strength. So we'll get to that a bit later, but we're going to look at a few more of these symbols here in Revelation 7. So we found out what the winds represent. Next, let's look at the earth and the sea. Now, looking at the sea, we should all know Revelation 17:15 says, "And he said unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." So you see that water represents people. But the Bible doesn't just say water, it says the sea. So it's being a little bit more specific, because there's also fountains and rivers and streams, other forms of water that are also symbolic in the Bible. Now, actually, here in Great Controversy, I should go there. Great Controversy, page 440. It answers both of these points. It says here, in Revelation 17, an angel explained that waters represent peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Revelation 17:15. Winds are a symbol of strife. The four winds of heaven striving upon the great sea represent terrible scenes of conquest and revolution by which the kingdoms have attained to power, which we just read. More specifically, that strife is political in nature and ecclesiastical in aim, I should say. So that strife is the strife of the time of trouble brought about by the enforcement of the Sunday law. And so the next paragraph here, it says, "But the beast with lamb-like horns was seen coming up out of the earth, instead of overthrowing other powers to establish itself. The nations thus represented must arise in territory previously unoccupied, and grow up gradually and peacefully. It could not then arise among the crowded and struggling nationalities of the old world, that turbulent sea of peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." Okay, so you see there, she just explained what the sea represents. The old world, the turbulent sea. And it makes sense because water being people, and the sea, according to Genesis, in the creation account, being the origin of the water, or the original place where God placed water, then the sea would represent the original place where God placed people. And the original place, according again to the Genesis account, is over in the old world, the old country. And so it says here, in regards to the earth though, where the beast with lamb-like horns came up, it says it must be sought in the western continent, because he came up out of the earth. What nation of the New World was in 1798 rising into power, giving promise of strength and greatness, and attracting the attention of the world? The application of the symbols admits of no question. One nation, and only one, meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. So she's saying one reason why we know that the lamb-like beast is a symbol of the United States of America is because it came up out of the earth, showing it came up out of the western continents, the Americas. And so we have the sea, the origin of people, origin of water, being the old country, the old world. And the western continents, the new world, are represented by the earth. And so it makes sense logically, and we have the spirit of prophecy establishing that. And also biblical references showing that these symbols also mean the same thing. Now, the next thing to consider is trees. And it's important to note that trees only grow on land. You never see sea trees. And so, I mean, there might be, but I don't know about any. But trees in the Bible are used many times as a symbol. And what they're used as a symbol for, according to Daniel 4, Psalms 1, Isaiah 61, verse 3, you can go check those out. A tree is a symbol for a type of leader or a person. A good example, like I said, is Daniel 4, specifically verse 20 to 22. Nebuchadnezzar had his vision of, or his dream of a tree. And you can go read the whole thing in Daniel 4, but at the end, Daniel explained to him, he said, "It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown, and reached unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth." So Daniel told the king that the interpretation of the tree in his dream was that the tree represented him. Now, grass also represents people, but trees being, the plants that raise high above the grass obviously represent the leaders. So, and there's a whole bunch of spirit of prophecy references as well, using trees as a symbol for leaders. So now we can see here in Revelation more specifically what it's talking about. So I'm going to read again, and we'll read this with understanding. It says here, "And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth." The reason why it says 4 corners of the earth is because it's talking about a global event. "Holding the 4 winds of the earth, being the time of trouble brought about by the Sunday law, that the wind, time of trouble, should not blow on the earth, new world, nor on the sea, old world, nor on any tree, leaders. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, new world, neither the sea, old world, nor the trees, leaders, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and they were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel." So, hopefully it's plain now what those symbols represent. We have more things that we can look at here, but first, let's just touch on something that was touched on in previous videos concerning this angel ascending from the east. In previous videos we covered that it started ascending in 1844 with Ellen White's first vision. Now you can read that in early writings, starting on page 14. And there's a few things that I want to point out here because we want to find out who the 144,000 are and where they come from. And so, reading in this book, Early Writings, page 14, we're going to find out what Ellen White's first vision was all about. It says, "While I was praying at the family altar, the Holy Ghost fell upon me, and I seemed to be rising higher and higher, far above the dark world. I turned to look for the Advent people in the world, but could not find them. And when a voice said to me, Look again, and look a little higher. At this I raised my eyes, and saw a straight and narrow path, cast up high above the dark world. On this path the Advent people were traveling to the city, which was at the farther end of the path. They had a bright light set up behind them, at the beginning of the path, which an angel told me was the midnight cry.